Hello and welcome to this week's review of the latest episode of My Hero Academia entitled Threads of Hope. Before we get into the review itself, I want to know what you thought about this episode, dear listener. Let me know in the comment section down below and you will be read out in next week's show. Whilst you're there, be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, click the button, do all the YouTube stuff that YouTube wants you to do, because YouTube is increasing the scary place of small content creators. Support your local small content creator today, it will do them a power of good. Now, on to the review. Okay, so for this week's episode, there was a lot of unexpected and thankfully unspoilt things for me, so I'm going into this episode with a lot of jolly feelings and an all-round happy mood. So with that in mind, let us start off with the positives. I have to say that I think that the vocal performances for this week's episode were just top-notch, just some really fantastic voice acting almost all the way through it. For the record, for anyone watching this after the fact, I watched this show subtitled and not dubbed. I do this A because it's a lot quicker for getting the reviews out, and because I just generally prefer the voice acting in the subtitled version more so than I like the English language dub, but that's a whole of discussion for a whole other time. I think there were just some brilliant, fantastic moments within it throughout, especially the moment where Midori is just shouting at himself to get moving and to try and save Best Jeanist. Just the sheer amount of anger and just rage and this almost begging willingness for him to do something was just a stellar performance, and I wish that I actually had a log of all the different voice actors for this program, but don't have it to hand, but still just brilliant all the way through. Just some really fantastic moments as we're seeing almost constantly for the past few episodes or so. Speaking of stuff that we often comment upon and often praise of on this program, the animation just once again was utterly superb. I really like the moment where Dabi is taunting Shoto and just the look of just how twisted Dabi's expression is on his face. Up until the past few episodes or so, Dabi has been a character who's more or less stayed in the background. Whilst he has had an interesting and eye-catching design, he generally speaking hasn't really been quite as expressive as this. He's been often a rather aloof and distant character, but now we're getting insight as to who he truly is and how he truly reacts to the world, and we're seeing just this warped, twisted individual, and we see this reflected in his facial expressions. It really is interesting to see. I do wish there was a little bit less of the blue fire effect along him. I know that if you didn't have that, it would almost look like a Dragon Ball aura thing, but there is a part of me that feels that's kind of taking away some of the details and some of the edges on his design, but still, it is just brilliantly well put together, as well as many of the action sequences, which again are just consistently fantastic at this point. It is good to see that there haven't been any major bum notes as far as the animation this season has gone. Not to say there were many in the previous seasons, but previous seasons it was a lot more mixed. This series, it has been, as all the people have mentioned in the comments of previous videos, a lot more consistent than what I've got in previous seasons. We get into the actual big sudden shock moment of this week's episode, which is Mirio's sudden return. That is a moment that just truly caught me off guard. As I said in the introductory kind of section, I didn't see this one coming. This was an aspect to the story which just wasn't spoilt for me. One of the few things that wasn't. I will admit that I had expected something like this to happen sooner rather than later. I did expect that we would see Eri using her quirk to restore his, but I didn't expect to see this soon. I kind of felt that it would be more likely something that we'd end up seeing towards the final couple chapters of this whole story, not something this relatively early into it. It's happening in the middle of it all, which I have no problems with in principle. It created a rather weird moment for me, and I think that at the end of the day, and I don't say this as a criticism, but I feel that this, well, it is a criticism in a way, but him coming back in the way that he did is doing what the Best Jeanist bit in last week's episode should have done. Mirio's return in this week's episode was just such a out of left field heroic moment that it was stunning and brilliant. That's what Best Jeanist's appearance last week should have been, but it wasn't, thanks to that weird intro bit where we'd already seen him being alive. Speaking of Best Jeanist, this is going to be a hard thing for me to really articulate, but he's such a bizarre character to me. You know, the way that he looks, the way that he's designed, the nature of his quirk, it all feels like he should just be a novelty character, a gag character, someone that we maybe only see once or twice, but by and large is just kind of like a neat thing more so than he ever really is a substantial character within his own right, but that's not the case. Like, when we got first introduced to him, he seemed like he was just going to be this crappy hero that Bakugo was going to be lumbered with his work placement. But that's not what we got. We got a character who is far more insightful, far wiser, far more clever and intellectual than really I think that many of us are expecting to do. And for the longest time, whenever you'd see like the promo stuff for the various different My Hero Academia movies, especially the last one from last year, we had like this shot of Midoriya and Shoto and Bakugo, and you had behind them their mentor. So behind Midoriya you had All Might, behind Shoto you had Endeavor, then behind Bakugo you had Best Jeanist. It just looked bizarre, and it just felt like, why is he the person that you're lumbering this guy with? But as we have seen, and as has been explained to us over the past season and a half, that Bakugo has a genuine love and respect for him in a way which I think needs better developing. I think that it's fine as is, but I think it needs just a couple extra things to just really round it off. Maybe we should get a better idea into the backstory of Best Jeanist, because it feels like Best Jeanist sees something in Bakugo that maybe he saw in himself at a similar kind of age. Maybe Best Jeanist back in the day was similar to Bakugo, where he was just this very brash, very explosive, very cocky person, and then things happened which ended up having to change who he was as a person, and maybe that explains why we see him frequently coughing up blood in the way that he does do. Maybe the reason why he covers up half his body with denim and half his face is because he was horribly mangled in some kind of accident, and he doesn't want Bakugo going down that path. And it would be neat to see something like this, because I feel that, again, Best Jeanist is a character which needs that final rounding off to him to make the connection between him and Bakugo not just feel like some kind of strange subversion or strange novelty, which I'll admit that it doesn't, but it has that kind of faint air to it. It's just missing that extra little bit from it. And as far as Bakugo is concerned, yeah, I just loved that joke moment, that gag moment where he came up with his hero name, and just the reaction that we got from everyone from it. I will admit that as soon as we saw Best Jeanist coming back last week, I was just thinking to myself, right, we're going to get this moment where Bakugo is going to reveal his hero name to Best Jeanist. We'll finally get that moment. It's going to be this brilliant, awe-inspiring, beautiful, emotional thing. It's really going to hit us in the feels, and it's probably going to make me cry, and it's going to be this beautiful moment, and we didn't get that. I genuinely thought that Bakugo was going to turn around and say, Best Jeanist, I'm here to tell you my hero name. It's Best Explosion. And it was just giving this nice connection to Best Jeanist, like he's giving a tip in the cap to his mentor, he's playing it back, but no, it's Lord Explosion, Murder Time, Kill Fest, or whatever, and yeah, I on the one hand, I am kind of disappointed that it wasn't a more emotive moment, but at the same time, it's just so keeping within the character of Bakugo that, yeah, I'll take it, maybe in time he'll pick a different name, but you know, it's nice to see that even despite the fact his guts are hanging out, he still has a sense of who he truly is deep down. And, look, this is going to sound like the weirdest praise in the world from a My Hero Academia fan, but I'm pleased that it looks like next week we're getting to the end of this arc, or at least the fighting of it, or at the very least Mr. Compress is going to die, because at this point, look, I've said it in the past, but I really think that we're at a point now where this particular arc just needs to end. It's kind of getting beyond, it's overstaying its welcome in a way that's just starting to piss me off more so than it is entertaining me. Whilst I do like the content of these episodes, whilst I've enjoyed what we've seen, I've enjoyed the drama, I've enjoyed the character moments, I've enjoyed the deeper subtextual and contextual stuff, it's going on a bit too long, and I feel that next week needs to be the final point of this fight. The villains need to make their break for it so that they can go off and do whatever, because at this point it feels like we're just going over old ground here, and the show is just trying to drag out this fight far longer than it needs to be. Hopefully that isn't going to be the case next week. It will be the final point, or the point at which stuff starts to wrap up. Particularly as I feel that we're going to be having a series break after next week. So I think that we just need next week will be the final part of this story arc, and then we just move on into the aftermath of it when we come back in the new year, because this is taking too long. It's really taking too long, and maybe this is good. Yeah, let's just get into the negatives now, and we'll continue on my thoughts about the arc as a whole in the overview, but let's get into the negatives. And there aren't that many, because I feel that at the end of the day, this was a fantastic episode, but I do feel that the stuff with Mirio and him getting his quote back could have been expanded upon and developed on a little bit more. I think that it comes across as being a little bit too convenient for my liking, that he just showed up at the absolute best time to save the day, which, on the one hand, yeah, we want that because it creates a far more punching the air, going, yeah, kind of moment, but at the same time, it almost does feel almost like a Deus Ex Machina kind of moment where our heroes are saved by something that we just didn't see coming at all. And there is a part of me that feels as though we probably should have had an episode where we saw how Mirio was adjusting to life without his quirk and just how he's had to just totally upend his entire life and change everything about himself, because losing a quirk, I just can't imagine anything more horrifying in a world like that. Just it's being a part of his personality and who he is since he was a child, and just losing that, being someone who in another time, in another life, probably would have become the next #1 hero of Japan, to just becoming an everyday person, just probably would have been a nightmare for him. And for a character who just almost consistently puts over this sunny, happy-go-lucky demeanour, to have something like that happen to him, I think would have been a more interesting thing to explore rather than just getting in a short flashback sequence. I don't know where you would have then put that episode. I suppose you probably could have done it in a way where we just see him come back and he just, when people ask him, how did you get your quirk back? He could say, oh, I'll explain it later, and then when we get into the aftermath stuff, then we get into it. But I don't know. This feels like, I'll admit that it does kind of feel a bit self-indulgent, and this is definitely a different strokes for different folks kind of thing, but there is a part of me that does feel it could have been handled differently. Maybe not better, I will admit, possibly not better, but possibly differently. But, you know, whatever you think about that whole angle, by all means, let me know in the comment section down below. So, as far as the overview is concerned, yeah, I do feel that this was a fantastic episode, and for just to head off any criticism of me before we get into this, I do feel that on balance, this arc has been frequently fantastic with some brilliant moments scattered throughout, but I think its greatest weakness has just been how long it has been. I have enjoyed the vast majority of it, and I think that in comparison to other story arcs in other series, I do feel that this has been one of the better handled that I have seen. But at this point, yeah, we need to start wrapping this up now. We need to ideally end this next week, because if we really are going to have a mid-season break over the Christmas period, we can't really be having this hanging over into January. The rest of the season's not going to be concluded for another 3 or 4 months. And if we're still dealing with this in 3 months' time, or 2 months' time, or even a month's time, yeah, that's going to be taking it way too far. I mean, I can quite happily deal with the aftermath stuff for the rest of the season, but yeah, we need to start wrapping this up now. We need to start wrapping this up. Next week has to be the end of this, because it's just starting to take the piss. Of course, with next week, it's going to be, well, it's going to be a bit of a complicated mess, because next weekend it's Christmas Eve, and we are going to be having an episode next week by all accounts. So, yeah, my day on Saturday is going to be really busy, because I will be helping getting Christmas stuff done for my family. So, there will definitely be a video next Saturday. I'm just not sure when it'll go up. Hopefully I'll get time to do it in the morning, even if it ends up being a rather rushed thing in the end, but we'll see. I will say that there is going to be a bonus video next week, because I've almost finished my Christmas special, so it'll probably end up landing on Friday, hopefully, maybe. Or we'll just get a double bubble thing on Saturday. We'll just soon see, because I didn't know when this mid-season break was coming on. I didn't know if it was going to be next week or whatever, but still, got a Christmas episode coming next week and next week's review, which hopefully will land some point on Saturday, but it all really depends on how we are in terms of timing and such. But still, we'll discuss all that later on, but for now, let us get into Comment Corner! Okay, time for our comment from this week. Wait, that's not even good English, but whatever, we'll move on. Time for this week's comment from X1, or as they seem to be now known as Big X1. Ooh, someone's gone from an upgrade. They say, honestly, I didn't know about the Dabi and Endeavour connection. Probably the one person on the internet that didn't know, so for me it was a good twist. And as always, thank you for the comment, and if anyone else wants to leave a comment, you know how to at this point. Just leave a comment down below and leave a few likes whilst you're there. And I am happy to hear that Big X1, as they are now known, is one of the few people that didn't know the connection. I'm really happy about that. Though, as I said last week, that was one of the many things that has been spoilt for me. I will admit that I had heard some speculation in the run-up to that it might have been the case. And I don't mind speculation, and I don't mind it when speculation turns out to be right. Though there are a few kind of things which, look, we don't have time to discuss it, but there are a few elements of speculation that turned out to be true that kind of make me think, so either the My Hero Academia fan base is really, really smart, or the writer is really, really, really predictable, or they've just been copying fan theories. I really don't know, but that's maybe a discussion for a whole other time. But, you know, like I said, I don't mind speculation, and I don't mind it when speculation turns out to be right, but when you have moments where you have YouTubers outright putting in their thumbnails and the titles for their videos, OMG, Dabby is Endeavour's son! It's at that point I just want to punch them on the nose, because you shouldn't really be doing that. I understand the game, I understand that you need to get as many eyes on your stuff as possible, but that's just a horrible way of doing it, because it ruins it for people like me who really can't afford to be buying the manga every other week, who really can't be affording to get into that, and we have to rely on watching it on television or on streaming, as is the case with me. So yeah, I'm happy that it wasn't spoiled for you. I wish I had the same feeling. Though, as I explained last week, I think I probably would have put 2 and 2 together sooner rather than later, because it feels a tad predictable. Again, maybe that's another discussion for another time. But what did you think, dear listener? What did you think about this week's episode of My Hero Academia? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Let me know in the comment section down below, and I will get back to you shortly. And also, you will be read out in next week's show, though bearing in mind that if you are watching these episodes after the fact, maybe you're watching the dubbed version of this, it might be a while before you see your comment read out. I just want to throw that out there, because when I'm recording this right now, it's a week before Christmas Eve. When you're watching this, it might be like the middle of January or early February. So just bear that in mind. Actually, I was going to get onto another tangent then, but let's not, because this video is going a little bit longer than I expected to do. But still, thank you all for listening, and see you next time, where we'll probably have the Christmas special. Woo! Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell, and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do. Go on, it'll do me a power of good. Until next time, my friends, goodbye!